Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Swords. As always, I'm Andrew.
And I'm quite pleased that we've settled the issues before, with a little bit of tension before we started recording.
What tension?
There's just a little bit of back and forth. A little bit
No,
of...
you were just wrong.
No.
Like, we keep running into this issue, Jay. It's just you refusing to accept you're wrong.
The terminology was not as widely accepted as you thought it was.
I'm sure it is.
It's definitely not.
We'll put it in a group chat with two different people after the pod and
We'll see.
we'll see what they say
We'll
to
see.
settle the discussion.
We'll bring the results back.
Yeah.
But other than that,
It's going all right.
how are you, my man?
I'm all right. We had a nice time the other night at someone's
Well, he's a guest of the pod.
guest of the pod, Andrew. He is now a married man, ladies. I'm really sorry to tell you.
Congratulations to Andrew and Donna.
Absolutely.
CrossingSwords raises a...
Yeah, I might not have named her, but you know, fair enough. You did it. So
Use
I'm
the
fine.
soundbite. Use the soundbite. Use the Will Smith. Use the Will Smith.
1 second. You've put me on the spot. You know I don't really.
I always put you on the spot, and you never.
Well, no, but how did I see that coming? I now can't find it. There we go.
Will Smith just smacked
No,
the
that's
shit.
the wrong.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
And it's now properly applicable.
And do you know
'cause
what's this?
She is.
I won't.
And now he's just given his surname. Do you want to give his address? Do you want to dox
The
him
fact-
anymore?
The fact that he lives at
You
14
wanna
Wyman
start
Avenue is completely irrelevant.
And his number starts with. Do you want to say
Can you
his
guess the
mum's
last
maiden
digit?
name?
I don't mind name dropping his mum. Do you want me to name drop his mum?
No, but just don't give her a maiden
No,
name.
because I suppose that's one of the security questions, isn't it?
Yeah.
Could be a bit dodgy. I won't tell you the first name of his pet either.
No. Otherwise, I think he could be quite upset with you.
Listen, he works in IT security. Well, he works in IT.
He's definitely got two-factor. Do you know
He's
what I mean?
yeah. He's packing some
He's gone for the
security.
twofer.
He's packing some
Minimum
security.
two.
Definitely.
Do you think some of these guys are going 3 or 4? Is that a thing?
What, a three-factor,
Do we
four-factor authentication?
Like, we're just peasants, so like we get 2-factor. What are they rocking? 10-factor? Do you know what I mean?
That depends what kind of assets you're protecting.
Yeah. Like,
I've
how
got-
many factors
I've got
has
very-
Elon got?
I've got very little to protect.
No, we know that's not true. Not now. You're potentially working for the Royals.
No, for tax reasons, I don't own any of it.
No.
It's all signed off
It's
to
all
someone
in the
else.
Caymans,
It's all
isn't it?
it's all in the name of the dog.
Yeah.
Harry Redknapp style.
When people do stuff like that,
Mental. Do you know, I was
But
talking
he's fine.
in terms of like really dumb things. I was talking to someone at work today because they said they were on. They said their YouTube algorithm was or Instagram algorithm was suggesting to them Instagram Ronaldinho videos,
Okay.
and I was like, do you remember when he ended up in a Paraguayan prison?
Oh yeah, for using a fake ID.
But you know
didn't
what's
he?
mad is that so it must have been for like work visa projects, but him and his brother went to do a tour in Paraguay.
I think someone's broken in upstairs.
I was hearing, I don't think you can hear it in the podcast though, so I think you've just
No, it's
given the
fine,
game
it's
away.
just
You're just
me and you.
completely distracted.
Sorry. Anyway, continue about Ronaldinho in prison.
Well, no, him and his brother went to do this work tour in Paraguay, like promoting some merch, and they decided to try and get into Paraguay using Paraguayan passports. He's one of the most famous Brazilian footballers on the planet.
It was never going to go well.
In a part of the world where football is a very popular
and he's
thing.
quite recognisable.
He's
Like,
very recognisable.
like he's quite
It's like,
good.
my man, and he was like part of like huge successful ad campaigns for various companies.
Some of the most viral ad campaigns
Absolutely
ever.
no way.
He was getting away
That
with
would be like Ronaldo number 9
How
turning
much
up
was
with
he
a little
getting paid,
tuft.
though? Because like, if it was enough, then it sort of makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Everyone has their price.
And apparently he's quite well known for enjoying the party lifestyle. That can't be cheap.
I've heard that.
You know, there's accusations out
Sly
there.
dog. I don't, accusations
It's a
is
strong,
a strong
word.
word.
It is a strong word. I'm just being
It's
controversial.
just he enjoys it. Let him enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Like he's known to.
No one's underage. It's all consensual as far as I know.
Well, you can't know these things.
As far as I know, I've not been invited.
I don't know why I'm trying to bring Ronaldinho down. He's had enough damage.
You've got it in
done.
for someone today.
Yeah.
Someone's gone on a date.
No, it's you coming in hot. Do you know what I mean? Just immediately coming in and starting a ruckus.
Oh, before
Yeah.
I didn't start a ruckus.
You've put me on edge.
Should be on edge. It's how I like to live.
What? You like to live life on the edge? You come across that way.
I'm
You're
a-
definitely a fly by the seat of your
I'm an
pants.
adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, you're Jack in the Titanic. You're risking it all. Do you know what I mean?
In a way, I am, because I'm very unprepared for most things.
You just turn up.
I sort of do.
A few blank sheets of paper.
Talking to
And
someone,
wind in your hair.
someone's going away next week. And they were like, yeah, I've already started packing. I'm like, mate, absolute joke. I'm not packing until the morning of.
I can't understand that. I can't understand
No,
that.
to be fair, and that's an exaggeration, I do most of my packing the night before. And then I pack a few bits in the morning.
That. Like, I'm the sort of guy, at least a couple of days before I want to be done.
Just can't do it.
My dad, God rest his soul, before he passed away, a week before the holiday minimum, suitcases are on the dining room table, on this very dining room table. And the packing process will start. Like, stuff gets ironed, puts in, and the only stuff you're packing the last minute is your chargers, your toiletries, that sort of thing. But you're just an absolute weirdo.
It all goes in last minute. It all goes in last minute.
Wow. Yeah.
It's how I live.
Yeah, I can believe it. I can believe it. I wanted to give a shout out, talking about the wedding. We met an absolutely lovely couple. But the guy who approached me first, he was like, "You, Andrew?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I knew your reputation got ahead of you. I knew it.
Know many people at the wedding.
Told you weren't welcome back in the north, didn't I?
I was like, "Oh God, what's this?" And then he was like, "I watch Crossing Swords," and I was like, "No." And then I remember Andrew told me that he'd put a couple of people on to watching the pod. But he was very lovely, very generous with his words, and he said that he listens to us every Monday morning.
So tempted to put you on the spot.
What?
I was going to ask you what their names are.
It was Jack and Amy.
Very well done. You know what? You could have said anything, because I was so drunk. I didn't remember anything.
You did get a little bit tipsy, bless you.
I had a few drinks.
But you were having a nice time.
I had a lovely time.
You had a dance on the dance floor.
I had a lovely time. Paying the price, even today.
Yeah, you were complaining before the pod about your tight calves.
They are so tight, though. They're so tight.
How tight are they, Jay?
Tighter than A, my wallet, and B, my arsehole.
Yeah, that's wow.
Both, yeah.
That's where it falls down. I'm
no,
afraid.
But I'm not wrong. It is tighter than. You know, if my arsehole is famously loose,
yeah,
then it is tighter.
Yeah, but that's not saying much, is it?
But yeah, no. Yesterday, Monday's recording day today. Yesterday was an absolute killer.
I just want to say we are sad because obviously the Palace have said there's going to be an announcement on Wednesday, so we're having to record this pre-announcement.
Yeah, so you'll all know what the announcement is.
So we'll probably react to it the week after knowing us. But I think it's a good opportunity to have a new segment to the podcast. Have I got it lined up and ready? No, I haven't.
No, probably not knowing you.
No, but that was your fault.
You put yourself on the spot. No, you put yourself on the spot.
No, you maybe changed the page.
No, you could have preambled.
Right,
you could have gone backtrack. You could have changed the thing.
We should be doing this off pod, by the way. Not bickering on pod. But I've got it ready now. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
And I think you'll know what
I was ready before you were.
My idea is as soon as I press it.
Sure.
What do you think it is?
Is it Kate Watch?
It's Kate Watch.
I will say this.
Yeah.
And clearly my best editing award from last year's end of year Christmas do is well earned, because I've noticed you've recycled the clip I edited for it for Nadine Watch there.
Have I?
You've taken the Nadine Watch sound.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you've used, because you know what? You recognise a good bit of sound editing when you see it.
Absolutely.
Or when you hear it.
Absolutely. And the people know a winner when they hear it.
And I think it's just justifying the panel's decision to award the way they did.
I agree. Look, it's a timeless piece of music, and I think you'll be remembered for a long time. For
it will be my legacy.
It will be your legacy. I think that's all you need to say on the subject, really, isn't it?
But have you seen Kate?
I haven't seen Kate. Have you seen Kate?
Nope, still missing.
Yeah, she is still missing.
That's Kate Watch.
Yeah, that's Kate Watch over. But no, I wanted to sort of talk about it briefly, only because it's doing really good numbers for us at the moment.
Why break something that's not broken, right? Why fix something?
At the time of recording, it's just been a good week for the pod in terms of talking about Royals for the last couple of weeks. And we appreciate it. We've got some new subscribers since because of it. So
Welcome.
we appreciate the love. And to those out there that said grow up, tell your mum to grow up.
Tell us to grow up.
Yeah. And I responded by saying dishonour on you, your family and your cow.
Kate would approve,
I think she would.
but we will never know
No.
because she may never come back again.
So should we just speculate for a minute? What do you think's coming on
What if
Wednesday?
they get a Kate look-alike?
Well, there's allegations out there because there's a photo of her with her mum in the car. But when you look at the photo, it's not Kate.
Who's looking that hard at the photos?
What do you mean who's looking that
Yeah,
hard?
everyone fair.
Everyone.
It's a pretty big deal.
Have you seen what's happened on Twitter today? That they released a photo of the Queen with all the royal children.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's now getting picked over and there's issues.
They were like, she never met the kids. No, but legitimately, that was the thing. Was like, she was never in the same room as all of those grandchildren. That's the accusation.
Yeah. But I just found it funny that and people are tweeting like, oh, for fuck's sake, not another one. It's like that old lady.
And
She gets
another
told
one.
about-
How bad do you have to be at your job, by the way, for PR to mess up your PR so badly that you're dragging in the work of your colleagues from like 2 or 3 years ago
Yeah. And that's not even legit.
is now under scrutiny
Yeah.
just because you fucked up so badly?
Yeah, it's not great.
She should have hired CrossingSwords, is all I'm saying.
Look, we've said it. And there'll be a clip for it at some point. But
Should have
we're
hired us.
available for PR work.
And we're pretty cheap. I think 240 grand is like
For a
relatively
year.
cheap and
It's
for a
alright.
year's work for the
Considering
Royals.
how much money they have.
They got a few quid, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's negotiation to be had for sure. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe on your salary, but mine is a hard line.
Look, as a good team player like I am, I'd be willing to take a little less
And
to make it happen.
as a selfish team player like I am,
You
I'm
absolutely
grateful for your sacrifice.
I'm just trying to win the people back after my campaign of cancer
It's like-
killing.
Do you know the story of when Chris Tarrant left Capital Breakfast?
No.
And apparently the sort of CEO, I guess, of I don't know if it's owned by Global at that point, but the head of Capital Radio at that point came in on his last day when everyone was like handing around cake and stuff and went, well, the good news is everyone else can now afford a pay rise.
But they didn't get it though.
No, they did. Like
Oh,
genuinely,
okay.
all of the budget was going on.
On Chris
All of the
Tarrant.
station's budget
Was he
going
that
on Chris
good?
Tarrant. Well, he was getting paid that much. I don't know whether he was that good.
Yeah. Because I thought he was all right, wasn't he?
I don't mind Chris
He
Tarrant.
wants to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
What else did he do?
Mostly railway stuff now, doesn't he? Fishing and railways, that's his thing.
Yeah.
He's like, do you know what? Channel 5 are going to
I'm
pay
not
for me
old
to...
enough for that yet.
No, but if Channel 5, if you're into fishing and you're into railways, and Channel 5 are going to give you money, however bad the money is...
You're going to take it.
A relative, he's not hard up for a few quid, is he? Yeah, you're going to... And they're going to pay for you to go around and fish and do railway stuff.
Oh, no, absolutely. Like, when I see some celebs doing travel stuff, I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't you? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, if you're getting paid to go on a holiday and just be in front of a camera for a bit.
Even if it's not holiday, like, just to enjoy, do something you were going to do
Yeah.
anyway, to a certain extent.
And get paid for it.
Yeah.
And get to see more of it, most likely.
Yeah, they do let you in when you've got the cameras.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Have you got anything you want to talk about?
I'm sure I have.
Talk to me.
Let me find it.
Lay it
Because
on,
you know,
mate.
like, I think about things and then forget them. It's very much my MO.
But wait, we didn't actually say what we think we're going to hear on Wednesday. We got sidetracked.
I mean, I don't know. What do you think we'll hear on Wednesday?
I think my bet is Will's going to try and publicly shame everyone and be like, how dare you try and ruin our privacy. Kate's really unwell.
And she's
She's
told me
not
that
well
from
enough
just the
to-
other room. Like, she's literally just...
I promise you she's fine.
This is her now.
Because what I'm
Honey,
thinking is...
No, I'm telling him. She's really mad, guys. Really. No, this is her.
that she's not well enough to be
This
here.
is her.
Because their handling of all of it has been so bad. I'm going for like, what would be the worst thing they could do? And it would be William in front of a camera saying, she's fine, everyone, leave us alone, you horrible people.
Yeah.
So,
So that's what you think he's going to come and shame
Yeah.
them all? Why would he wait till now? Why has he not done it?
I don't know. Build up the tension. Maybe he's a bit of a showman.
Does he strike you as a... Young Will would strike you as a showman.
Yeah.
Young Will would. I don't know
also
about old
think-
Will.
I have heard people saying that his opinion of the press and having to be more open than he's comfortable with, given his history and his family's history, that this is his way of attempting to control the situation as much as possible and give away as little as possible because he doesn't feel he owes anything.
And he's got to be very careful because people want to know where Kate is, and he quite clearly doesn't know where Kate is.
Do you think he doesn't know?
Well, I don't think... Look, if you were going to get your Goonies to go and bury a body, you wouldn't want you wouldn't want them to tell you where it was just because you wouldn't want to risk being incriminated.
Do you think he's killed her?
No, I think she's off in Barbados with like some other bloke.
Really?
No, I'm making it up. I've been making it up for clicks and likes. I don't know.
But right, anyway, we were going to move on to something else.
Two things.
Go for it.
Because one's just a quick one,
Yeah.
quite funny. I quite enjoyed it. Miriam Margolyes.
Oh,
What?
I used to like her.
Are you going off her because of the Harry Potter comments
I
she made?
absolutely am, actually.
Because that's not even what I wanted to talk to you about.
No, I think she's a cunt.
Because she told Harry Potter fans, adult Harry Potter fans, they need to grow up.
Yeah, and the money back then, you horrible bitch.
No. You grow up. That
No,
was her deal. That was her deal.
No, like, I just... there's
As someone who's a part of a fandom, not like
yeah.
probably it was a little bit like you don't get it.
Like, and I get who she is. I've seen a lot of her, and like I said in the past, I liked her.
But do you know what? I kind of love the fact that she's old. She doesn't care. She's brazenly biting the hand that feeds her.
Yeah.
Mad respect.
No.
Because she did something.
No, I'm being consistent. I feel like Ivan Tony's a wanker for behaving in a similar manner, like biting the hands that feeds him. So I'm being consistent here. I think she's a wanker.
She did something else this week, or she revealed something else this week that I really liked.
What did she reveal?
So, are you aware of the upcoming series Agatha?
No.
As the Marvel series,
one.
it's a spin-off from WandaVision,
Yeah.
which
I
in
thought it
itself
got
is, I guess, a
cancelled.
spin-off from Age of Ultron, which is a spin-off of Avengers, which is a spin-off of Iron Man. No, it's still going ahead.
Okay.
But so she revealed this week that she was asked to play a role in it,
Yeah.
but she didn't really want to go to Georgia for 4 months to film it because that was the filming schedule.
And she didn't want to be in Georgia for 4 months.
She just didn't want to be in Georgia for 4 months. So she said, okay, I'll do it, but I want £1 million. And they said, no, how about $500,000?
Yeah.
And she went, no, because I really don't want to go to Georgia for 4 months. And I think that's a baller move to turn down £500,000.
Well, yeah, like knowing your worth, there's nothing wrong with that. And
It's a lot of money for like 4 months' work, though.
Yeah. But
That's $125,000. $125,000.
I imagine at this point of her life, especially after
month.
Harry Potter, she's comfortable. So she's in a position where she can say yes and no to projects, and apparently say no to the people that put her in the position she's in.
I still love her.
I think.
I disagree with her on the fandom thing.
Yeah, like look, I'm
But I
not
still
saying
love
she's.
her.
I'm being a bit dramatic. But
You?
I don't like
Never.
that sort of behaviour, and like, I don't know, that will upset people more than it's upset me, rightly or wrongly. But that will upset people that she's behaved like that.
But you know, again,
And fine, think it behind closed doors. Say
what
it
she's
to your
doing
mates, but like to publicly.
is she's lighting a stick of dynamite, chucking it in the crowd, and then
and
walking
fucking
away.
off, yeah.
Because she's not online. She's never going to see the reaction.
She doesn't
I
give a
fucking love
fuck.
it.
No, she doesn't give a
I
fuck.
love it.
Yeah,
But there is a more serious story I want to talk to you about.
go for it.
Just get your opinion on it. So, are you aware that in Michigan this week, or in the last very, very recently, the parents of a school shooter, a teen school shooter who's already been imprisoned,
Right.
have been charged with manslaughter?
Really?
Yes, for the role that they played for allegedly ignoring
The warning.
the
signs.
child, ignoring the warning signs, allowing the child to have access to the gun.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to discuss here, because obviously there's an autonomy of the child who's their own person and can do their own thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So on the morning of the shooting, they were called, and obviously there's a bigger story here, but they were called into the school for a warning meeting about some disturbing instances with their son.
Yeah.
And they were quite quick to get through it, dismiss it, and they said, look, the school said, we think you should maybe take your son home for a couple of days and maybe discuss the things we've presented to you. They said, like, no, he's staying at school, we've got to go to work. And in his bag, he added the gun, and then he went and he did the shooting that day. But also, yeah, like I said, so there's a lot, but equally, you know, he wasn't like 4, getting
Yeah.
access to these weapons. So I think there's a lot. It's a nuanced thing.
Yeah, there's quite a few things there. Like, part of me in my head, my first reaction in my head was for them to. It's quite an unprecedented move.
It's
I've
very
never heard of
unprecedented.
this happening
It is
before.
Absolutely the first time.
So there has to be, I would assume, or my hope would be, that there must be enough evidence that they were negligent to a point that it warrants them being charged with this. The other part of me...
But it's also clear to point out that they're not being charged with, like, child neglect specifically.
No,
or anything.
it's with causing
It's manslaughter.
the death
It's
of these
it's-
people
yeah.
indirectly.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? Because
I know it's putting you on the spot. It's a lot to take in.
it's a bit similar to like my attitude towards like when the Savile stuff comes out and you're like, all these people knew, and like I find all of them equally
Complicit.
So I should, if I'm being consistent,
No, but that.
hold them at least somewhat accountable.
But that's where the question. Like, there's a difference between knowing a crime was happening and ignoring it, and
being able to
being
stop
able to predict that someone who's not quite right, mentally unstable, would go and commit a crime. There's there is a clear difference.
Oh, 100%. But then that takes me back to like what's the evidence against them? But the other thing is like I need to know more about the kid. Like what was his motivations? What was he afflicted with? Do you know what I mean? You need to understand where he was to see like, because if it was he was schizophrenic or something like that and he'd had an episode and just lost it and was getting deeper and deeper and did what he did, then I'd find it difficult to blame the parents, because other than having him on meds and keeping an eye on him, there's not a lot you can do.
But that's the question. Did they keep enough of an eye on him?
Well, yeah. But my gut would be, as long as there's enough evidence, I'm not entirely against it. But
I think it's also...
it's difficult.
To me, it reeks a little bit of desperation from some of the prosecutions who just are fed up with the consistent number of school shootings and mass shootings.
It's also not addressing...
legislation is not helping them.
The elephant in the room.
So they've got to do something else.
In America, they have guns. So like the chances of this happening dramatically increase, and it keeps happening over and over and over again. And their response is to be like, let's give teachers guns.
Oh, by the way,
or let's give more guns out.
Like there was a story this week. It's just a sidetrack. I will circle back, but there was two stories this week. So like, I mean, but the one was I saw a Guatemalan immigrant, and that's the way it was posted. It was this illegal Guatemalan immigrant. Basically, a police officer came to his door to, talk to him, presumably about these issues. I don't know. Had a heart attack, died, and the dude was arrested. And
what? Because the policeman died of a heart attack
and charged with. He's been released.
Yeah.
And it's been dropped. But it was like, are you insane?
What did they think that he did to him?
Caught through stress or something was the prosecution's argument, that you'd caused this. And it's like, man, you lot are deranged. Turned up at his door and died. Like, that's quite frankly, that's a nerve.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he's inconvenienced me. He's died on my doorstep.
I've got to get rid of a dead cop now.
This looks really suspicious.
But getting back to the Michigan thing, it is completely unprecedented. It is the first time that a prosecution has ever tried for going after the parents of a teen shooter or child shooter.
For me, where I lean to on these things sort of normally is the reason people end up becoming that desperate and that depressed is because there's not enough systems in place to pick up on these people and give them the help they clearly need to stop them committing these crimes.
And in America, it cost them an arm and a leg if they did anyway.
If they did need help, So then, in America, this issue specifically for me is two things: the social economic issues in their country, and like ours, with deep issues with wealth inequality, and then you add in guns to the mix where everyone can get a hold of them. You can walk into a Walmart and get a gun very easily. It's not surprising that this happens.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the socioeconomic thing, because I wanted to mention that as a factor in the fact that the parents were so quick to rush through the meeting because they had to get to work, because they felt that...
Was that their defence?
Well, their whole... and the teacher went with the teacher didn't say no, there was something else going. The teacher was like, yeah, they were quick to get to work, so they weren't hanging around.
Whereas
again,
if they'd have been less desperate to earn money, they might have had more time to keep an eye on their kid.
Not to get too woke, lefty snowflake here, but if we lived in a world where it wasn't such strong capitalism, where people, unfortunately, you and I, many of our listeners will work in workplaces where you can't be off sick.
No.
You can't, take time off for you. And parents, like, you can't take time off for your kids. If you get called in for I've worked places where a parent had, a colleague of mine had like a kid who was a bit of a terror-about. And whenever their kid got called in, whenever the parent got called in to talk about the latest thing, it was not, you've got to go and deal with your kid. Like, it was, you should have raised your kid better, otherwise you wouldn't have been. Do you know what I mean? That's the vibes you got, not from the colleagues.
No, but from higher up.
Yeah, from the company itself.
Yeah.
And that's only going to be worse in America, like on the other side of the pond. That's only going to be. So I think, for me, I don't know. I've obviously, like you said, the evidence. I haven't seen the evidence. There must be a certain amount to convict them on, but I lean towards it being a bit harsh to blame the parents for, at some point.
Well, yeah, but
they are trying to survive. Like, I don't know their stories. I might be inventing a story for them.
No,
but they're trying to survive, and in these times, they obviously, you've got a parent and you've got to look after your child. But once your child reaches a certain age, you do tend to give them a bit more independence. And sometimes that's a bad thing. Like here, it's obviously a bad thing. But is it necessarily their fault?
And also,
to a point where you can charge them and imprison them.
I would imagine you tend to lean towards, my kid isn't the sort of person that's going to go and shoot up
I can't believe they do that.
And fair enough. It sounds like you said there was disturbing incidents involving him at school.
There was the morning of the shooting. They were in to discuss a couple of recent incidents.
There still is a massive leap between that and assuming your son's going to go murder people. But the problem with all of these things, we never, as a society, call for enough change, do we? Like we know what the issue is, but none of our politicians in either side, of America or here, are interested
in America. None of the debates and stories that we have over it would come about if they banned guns.
Yeah,
they just wouldn't, because in the UK, I know people have guns and shootings happen, but mass shootings don't happen. Like access is so Americans, gun-loving Americans, tend to think that access will still be just as... It really won't. It will not be as easy, and I promise you, like, the number of shootings will drop off a cliff.
If there's less guns, it's not...
And there will actually be less guns. There will be fewer guns.
And we know there's been enough studies now to show that if you're having issues with violence, particularly amongst the lower economic demographic, which is where it usually is, the ways out of that is social economic reform and investment.
Unfortunately,
it's not complicated. It's not difficult.
Rich people don't shoot each other; they shoot helpless animals, either home or away.
Yeah.
But the other thing,
I hate scum
just as
like Africa and
disgusting, absolutely game hunting, disgusting,
grim.
But I just want to mention, just as a kind of devil's advocate scenario. When I was younger, I would, I'm sure many of our listeners would like every now and then sneak alcohol out of my parents.
Yeah.
And get drunk.
Don't know if I ever did that.
Like, but if a child, like not a child again, I say if a teenager, like sneaks half a bottle of rum out of their mum's or their dad's collection and then refills it with water, goes to the park with their mates and gets fucking wankered off their face, would you blame the parents? Would it be fair to blame the parents?
No, probably not.
Is it different because it's alcohol, and alcohol is a more socially acceptable thing than guns, particularly in the UK?
Yeah.
They're all questions. I'm not saying I have answers. I just, as a devil's advocate option.
I mean, the thing is, the stories in America of kids happening, of like managing to get access to a gun in their parents' bedroom or somewhere in the house, and they end up shooting themselves in the head. Like, it's countless. But there's enough money in guns that they can keep people whipped up in this. But do you know what made me laugh about the American Constitution and their amendments and how stringent they are? A decent chunk of the founding fathers, and I can never remember which one it was that was the most vehement about it, was that they wanted it to be, the constitution to be renegotiated every 15 years because they didn't believe any generation should be beholden to the one before and they should be allowed to make decisions for themselves. But yet, the biggest thing is that they're all obsessed with their right to bear arms.
And also, I know I've said it a million times
and the
before.
hilarious thing is they have a tyrannical government. They have no real representation. They have no real control.
And I've said it before, the biggest thing with the American Constitution is it's an amendment. Please look up the definition of an amendment. It used to be, again,
and they
I know
constantly add shit to it.
I throw this one at a lot of, whenever, not that I'm talking to a lot of gun-loving Americans, but I will throw this one at them if I ever do encounter them, which you do once in a while in the wild, even in the UK, is that, it's my right to bear arms. It's like, okay, that's all well and good. It's not actually what the amendment was for, but that's me being really pedantic. But it's like, okay, so you believe the Constitution as it was written in, 1770, well, no, 1775 was the Tea Party, but okay.
76?
It was a bit after, but it was like the 90s, 80s, 90s it was written. But you're saying that this late 18th century document is still as valid today. Yep, okay, so you think it's legal for me to own a slave? You think that should be protected by the Constitution?
Yeah, they always...
Because that was that was a protected right.
Yeah.
And they amended it.
I've heard some Americans on podcasts, like there's one called Have a Word. They went to Nashville and they went to a shooting range. And they're chatting to the guy that works at the shooting range, and he's got this assault rifle round his neck, and he was like, I've got a license that I could just walk around the street with this. Just
who needs that? Why do you need that?
He says I don't. Yeah. He says I don't, obviously.
No, but why do you need a license? Why does anyone? Yeah, no, I know.
It's mental. But he was like, what do you guys do if someone breaks into your house? And they were like, ask him to leave, basically, because you can't even really defend your own home in this country, can you? Like, there's been cases of people that have attacked the person breaking into their house.
Yeah, and then they counter-prosecute. Yeah.
So they were like, well, not a lot, really, to
the
be
thing
honest
is,
with you.
We're not saying our system's perfect.
And then his response was, well, if someone breaks into my house, I get to put a bullet in their head.
Does that make you feel good?
And he was like, and there'll be no questions asked. The guy broke into my house. And like, there is I guess I can understand someone thinking that means they're safe. Do you know what I mean? I can understand that, but I don't agree with it. I don't.
No, like I said, it was just, I wanted to get you.
And they were like, would you warn the guy? And he was like, no, just
wanted to get your opinion on it, because, like I said, okay, the wider issue is if America banned guns, there'd be none of this shit to be even discussed.
Or far less of it anyway.
But just wanted to get your issue on, in the context that guns are such a thing.
If I was there, I'd probably feel quite hard done by. If I was there, I can imagine.
But what about if, again, I know I'm throwing just lots of scenarios at you, what about if you were the parents of one of the kids that was shot? That's a really unique, I know you can't put yourself in their shoes.
I can imagine in that situation. They probably didn't start blaming the parents until the police did. Do you know what I mean? Like
it wasn't it was the prosecution. It was the
but that's
Michigan
what I mean.
prosecution.
Until someone went after them, I doubt many of the parents actually. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't know.
It was the state prosecution that went after them. But even then, would they? I don't know. Anyway,
but then would they go after them if there wasn't enough public support?
Just wanted to throw.
Because that's sort of how it works in America, isn't it? You can't really go after people if the public aren't. Well, you can, but it makes it more difficult.
Just wanted to
what about
throw
you?
that out there. What do I blame the parents? Or like I said, I kind of lean on the side that I think is a little bit harsh.
Okay.
If it was a young child,
I think it's definitely harsh.
If it was a young child, I would kind of get that.
And I think it's because it's the first one. You're like, fuck, I actually don't know. Like, I think I'd need to go away and look into it and like hear more about it to feel more definitive on it. But it does feel harsh. But I can also understand the logic.
Again, how many warning signs were there?
Yeah.
What kind of pressures were the parents under? The context of their lives.
There's so many variables to it.
It was just a snapshot, which has actually taken us on more of a discussion than a snapshot.
No,
but
I enjoyed that.
Just wanted to.
A little random funny thing. Did you hear what happened with Sophie Ellis-Bextor?
Hang on. Is this her in France?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a bit funny.
In Paris.
But people were really upset about it.
I don't think it's that big a deal.
No, I've got to be honest. I was a bit like, well,
how annoyed?
What do you want her to do? That's her only song.
Obviously, at the end of the day,
Like,
Other
what do you want her
venues-
to do?
Other venues are available.
Yeah, but she wouldn't have chosen that venue. Someone would have done that for
Yeah.
her. So what she meant to
Imagine
do
if
when she
people
turns
went to
up,
the
not
show
play the one rammer
and
she
they were
does.
like, okay, we've sat through all the middle ones.
Yeah,
Where the fuck's the big song?
yeah.
It's like, it'd be really culturally insensitive to play it, so I'm not going to. It's like, bullshit to that.
Yeah.
I've paid my money, come out here and sing the
What if
fucking
she's at
Murder
a
on the
school
Dance Floor
fair in
song.
America?
Really limits her options if she can't do it there.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I just thought it was. I thought it was quite funny, and
just
I
for
didn't really
context,
understand the outrage.
A few years ago, there was a mass shooting at the Bataclan. Is it
Yeah,
Bataclan of the
something like
Bataclan
that,
nightclub
yeah.
in Paris during a metal concert? I think it was.
Yeah,
A lot, quite a few people died.
yeah, tragic
And
event.
so Sophie Alex Baxter was booked in to play the Bataclan this year. The
And for
Bataclan
those who don't know,
her
her
biggest
one big
hit,
song is called
Murder on the Dance Floor, which ironically was quite a literal case a few years ago at the same
Yeah,
venue.
and look, by the way, I'm not laughing at the fact people died. I'm just laughing at the fact that
People are
happened.
upset.
Well, yeah, or because the thing is, I bet the people that are upset weren't there, don't know anyone who died. Maybe not
Don't-
all of them. Maybe I'm generalising.
Don't get me
a
wrong,
little
if
bit
she
too
started
much.
taunting and was like, bet you're glad I'm only singing about it, I get it.
Yeah. If she'd have been doing that, but I doubt she was even aware. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think when I'm not saying she's like a massive star, but you sort of just get taken to venues and chucked in the back in the stage
She'll
door.
have a management team, and she'll just.
But
be
have her
told-
management team fucked up.
Yeah, probably. You probably shouldn't do it. You
Yeah.
probably shouldn't do it. But I could. I didn't know the name of the place until I heard about the Sophie Elliott story, so I could believe someone in her management team didn't know, but they probably should. Because it does happen. People do go and kill in
And like, if to be
on
honest,
dance floors. So
if you had said to me the name of the venue, immediately that's the first thing
would
my
you have
mind.
known?
Well,
I
that's the
wouldn't
first.
have
I'd have been
known.
like, oh, is that the place where
No, I'd
the
have had-
shooting took place?
I wouldn't
Yeah,
have had
yeah,
a
yeah.
Scooby Doo. Wouldn't have had Scooby Doo, mate.
But either way,
So I'm not particularly judgmental on it.
and thank God.
And I nearly said something really insensitive, and I chose not to. So I think we've all done quite well. One of the main things I wanted to talk about was 30p Lee. One of the don't know how to describe him really.
Is he worth more or less now thanks to inflation?
Definitely less. Definitely less.
Yeah.
The economy's not
30p
doing well,
don't
so
go as
he's
far,
not-
right?
No, it definitely doesn't. I don't know what you could get with 30p. You probably just about get a Freddo now. I bet it's more.
Well, according to 30p Lee,
I'll tell you
a
what,
whole
shall
meal.
I find out how much a Freddo is now?
yeah, go on. I think
Back
they've had
for
a
a
price
second.
drop recently, actually. But 30p Lee, for those who don't know, Lee Anderson, who was up till recently, was he the chair of the Tory party?
Yeah, until
And he
he threw his toys out of the pram and resigned because they couldn't get rid of Rishi?
No, it's because he said something racist, wasn't it?
No, it was before that. He was the chair. Then he
Oh, I
resigned,
see. Sorry, and then he resigned his position as chair.
Yeah.
But he's called 30p Lee because he once claimed that you could that everyone moaning about money and being poor, he was like, it's bullshit. You can eat for 30p was it 30p a day or 30p a meal? I think it was a day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It might have been a meal.
Might have
But
been.
he was
a
like,
meal.
you can feed a family for 30p a meal, whatever.
Yeah.
So it became 30p Lee.
Yeah, and then he said,
My assistant survives on like less than minimum wage, and then it turns out she was like super connected, and her dad used to be the head of the army.
she had a trust fund, yeah.
Yeah, so
like,
she was not hard up.
No.
And she was
Um,
living in central London on like 19 grand a year.
That was actually something I was listening to an economist talk about. And it's the same economist I keep talking about. His name's Gary Stevenson. He's really good. And he said the problem is with people.
He's probably been on this pod more than your sister, and you've promised her several times that she would come
She
on.
was nearly on today, by the way.
Was she?
She was nearly on today.
What?
But other half had to work late this evening. Otherwise, she would have been here.
What a bellend. I'm
But it will
vehemently
happen.
against the guy.
Because she was here earlier, and I was like, well, there's no reason why you could just come to
I'm
was
so
like,
up for it.
I know you did. So I was like, I know if I just tell Jake Joe's going to be here, he'll be like, yeah, cool.
If I say her name, you can't use the Will
Um,
Smith clip, can you?
No,
Doesn't
it's
apply.
just my sister.
Joe, you're always welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll sort it out. But she was nearly on today. That's the closest we got. It was a drive-by pod. What was I talking about?
Gary Stevenson.
Yes, Gary Stevenson. And he said the problem is with some of these people, like whether they're economists or MPs, their experience and who they're surrounded by and their experiences are not what the average person's coming through. So like 30p doesn't actually have any idea how much it costs to live or what people live on. And like because he has an assistant that's on less than minimum wage. He's like, well, yeah, she's fine. So it makes complete sense that he thinks that way because he's an arsehole.
I think just for like clarity and fairness, she
By the way,
wasn't on less than minimum wage, but she was on less than London living wage.
Yeah. I can't find the current price for Freddo. The latest one I could find was for 2022, where it was at 30p.
I'm pretty sure I've seen they've had a price drop recently.
But we'll get back to you on that one. We'll have to investigate.
I think that's what they should do. We should just stump politicians at the next.
Say how much is.
Yeah, how much is it? How much is Freddo?
What's the Freddo index at?
Yeah,
That's how we judge the economy when you're as poor
it's
as
how you
us.
judge the economy.
How much is a Freddo? But no, even like normal packs of sweets that used to be £1 on offer, they're now £1.65.
Yeah, and you get less with them.
Yeah, which is just bullshit. I don't like it.
We used to get shrinkflation. Now we're getting a mixture of actually the product is shrinking and the price is going up. It's not like the price is staying the same. No, the shrinkflation is where the price stays the same and the product gets less.
Oh, where they're doing both.
Now they're doing both. Yeah, now they're doing both. So like they used to do shrinkflation. You'd be like, well, you're paying the same price, but
it's almost like, how small does it go? Do you know what I mean? Like,
what can we get away with?
Yeah. How? Because before, I feel like one of those sweet packets that used to be £1 would have been like 150 grams. I think they're now like 98 grams or something like that. Or maybe, no, I think I think they're like 120. So how low do they let those go?
Yeah, less than 100, below 100.
100%.
Double the price a couple of times.
Yeah, not even like Doritos, man. They used to be £1 a bag. They're now on offer 175. You're like, mate, what's going on?
I know all the Tesco Club Card prices and
is what the price
and Nectar
used
price.
to be.
Well, I was going to say it's more than what it used to be, but it's closer to what it used to be. Yeah, but it's still more than what it used to be.
And what they do with the reason they do club cards is because they then sell the data of what you're buying, your shopping habits.
Dirty.
They build up profiles because they'll know what you buy, how often you buy it, and it gives them marketing information, everything like that. So they're making money off you whilst shafting you.
It's a beautiful world we live in, isn't it? The world of consumerism.
Wonderful. But we were talking about 30p Lee, weren't we? But he's defected to Reform.
Not the first time he's changed party, is it?
No, I didn't realise he was a Labour.
Nor did I until all this come out.
Previously. Does it mean anything? Because he's now he's the first ever Reform MP in Parliament. I don't think he's going to be
by
the last.
default. I think he will be the last.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
No, I'm a little bit worried. Like because we've talked about before. Because at the moment the polls are even worse for the Conservatives. Like there's talk of them not even being in opposition.
No, but I think Conservatives now have the problem that Labour have had for the last few elections, where before the trust in Labour was really low, so the left votes were being split between Labour, Lib Dems and Greens.
Yeah.
Greens picking up considerably fewer than the Lib Dems. I think Conservatives are now having that problem where their popularity is so low that the right-wing votes are going to be split between them and Reform. So it's essentially going to hand Labour the victory into a lot of constituencies. It's not going to be that... It's not necessarily going to be in a lot of seats where Labour win. They will get more votes, but it's not necessarily going to be that they're getting the right-wing votes. No, it's just that the right-wing votes are split and the left-wing votes are slightly more behind Labour than previously where they were splitting them. That's what I think. What do you think?
The reason I'm concerned is because, I mean, we've talked about it before, that if, like, the Conservatives don't even get into opposition, for example, they more or less become irrelevant, and there's then no guarantee they can come back from that. So my concern is then, where do the people that traditionally vote Conservative go? Well, the only option being offered to them really at the moment is Reform. So then Reform's not bound by, and this is going to sound like a ridiculous thing to say, like the Tories are and have been in the past, maybe not in recent history, hamstrung their behaviour to a certain level because
they need to be a bit more centrist than they'd.
That and they're the Tories, they're the Conservatives, they're an institution, they're part of the two part. Like there's a certain level you just can't descend to, and Reform aren't bound by that, clearly, by the fact they're quite happy to take Lee Anderson as their poster boy. So what worries me then, if people then start supporting Reform and doing it blindly like they would do the Conservatives traditionally, is the things they're going to be backing, and the
again
things
you normalise more right wing, more far right wing views.
And when you've got people like Farage, Anderson, and the like as your poster boys, it's not going to be a good message. And I know nothing about Richard Tice, so I can't particularly judge him. But if he's the head of Reform, then I can't particularly imagine he's a nice bloke.
It's, I don't know. Also, it is very feasible that, just given my opinion of him, that Johnson and Truss and the follow-on of that Sunak have broken the Tories. Very possible, but at the same time, this is a government that for the past 70 years have been in office more often than they haven't by quite a way. I'm not saying it's not possible, and maybe I'm being a bit naive, but the idea that they would drop off so quickly, because it's like Tony Blair proved in 97,
you can turn around.
It's quite easy to rebrand. Once you've dropped off enough, it's really easy to just kick everyone out and rebrand.
The only reason
kick out the front benches and rebrand.
I slightly disagree, because I feel like they've got to the bottom of their barrel and ran out. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's
I thought that a couple of prime ministers back, and they're still going.
Like, they are, but there's no quality there, is there? Like,
there hasn't been for some considerable years.
Like, they've got to the point where they bring back David Cameron, and there's even been things where he said to journalists, like, I couldn't be less interested in becoming the leader again. That's how desperate they are, that they've actually sounded out David Cameron. And then today it's been leaked that apparently Rishi Sunak has threatened his MPs with a general election, like, imminently, if they don't stop calling for his head, basically, because apparently more and more letters are going in to Brady. Again, is it the 1972 Commission?
1922.
1922.
But does that mean, like I said, does that mean that the door is opened for reform?
I think it does, because if they've got money, and I mean, we're lucky in this country that we limit how much can be donated to political parties.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Frank Hester thing's obviously been, which I know is obviously something we want to talk about, but with the reform thing, you're looking at, okay, 30p Lee's been an elected politician, but the rest of the people they've tagged so far have famously had very little success at the polling stations. True. I think Lawrence Fox is part of the Reform Party.
He is, yeah.
Obviously, like you said, some of the other names you mentioned, they're not winners.
The highest caliber.
They're not
people
that people that have run for office, and they're people that have failed.
Yeah.
In their runs for Parliament.
But in my scenario, though, if you then remove the Conservatives from relevancy, they haven't necessarily got anywhere else to go other than Reform, because Keir Starmer's not going to appeal to them. He's now apparently drawn a line in the sand and said,
which I quite like.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we've gone far enough.
Yeah, if you're going to be really racist, you're not welcome.
It feels very much like anyone who's paying attention to politics or anything really in general at the moment, we're at a breaking point in all sorts of ways. And the worrying thing is there isn't really a light at the end of the tunnel, because Keir Starmer, although he's drawn a line in the sand, hasn't committed anything.
Not until that sweet, sweet release of death. It's the first time you'll see any light at the end of any tunnel.
Yeah, and like Keir Starmer's essentially promising austerity light, where we'll spend a little bit of money, but not enough. And that's what makes me worried. You might be right that we then go back to potentially the Tories, I guess, if they do manage to stay relevant. It is hard to imagine them getting wiped out to that degree. But even if it's not Reform, right, what if the Tories decide, well, we lost because we didn't go right enough?
The question is, and the worrying thing is, historically, the reason the right have done very well in this country is because they haven't really had a viable threat in the polling station. There hasn't really been, in our lifetimes, and I can only really talk about in our lifetimes because that's sort of what we know, what we're comfortable with. There hasn't really been a credible option for right-wing voters. But for left-wing voters, again, in our lifetime, the Lib Dems have been incredible. They've all, they've had a few seats
in the last. They were in power, weren't they? In a coalition government.
In the last few elections, well, quite. I mean, in the last few elections, the Greens have had a couple of seats. So okay, it's a very few constituencies around that have voted Green, but they've got options. Yeah. The left have got options. The right didn't have options. So even people who didn't like the Tories, if they're like, well, I'm not voting for the left, well, it's going to be the Tories. So you're right. If the Tories are now alienated their own voters, they haven't got many other places to turn. So I completely agree that Reform could be a credible threat.
The question is, how many people are that type of person, I guess. That's what I don't know. I don't know how many people out there are are that type of voter or that type of Tory voter, or a right wing voter. I don't know how many there are. There's things that go against that theory, like the amount of people that are clearly not right wing, with things like the Palestine marches that we've seen constantly going on since it's happened. So maybe I'm wrong, but either way, things still don't look great. Even under
No, like I said, I might be naive.
I keep naively hoping that once they're in
It's
power,
not going to get worse.
Well, I mean, from what I've been listening to with Gary Stevenson, to plug him again, it is going to get worse. He said wealth inequality is only going to get worse because he said the government's got very little assets, and all the assets were with the rich.
Well, well, that's the thing. The government, just the same as Thatcher did, have completely asset stripped the country.
Yeah. And like, he broke it down really simply. Like, he said, like, during COVID, we gave a little bit of money to the poor and a huge amount of money to the rich. He said, like, the amount of money that was given out equates to about 16 grand a person on average if you average it across everyone.
A lot of people did not get 16 grand worth of help. Yeah.
And he said the people at the bottom end got very little. They got given the bare minimum, whereas the people who were the richest benefited massively. So he said, what happened? He said that's what causes inflation. He's like, if the people at the top keep getting more money,
because they're not putting it back into the economy as well.
Because he said they're the ones buying everything. So because they have money, the price keeps rising. And then the gap between the two, it doesn't matter if you give us a little bit of money. If you're giving even more to the people at the top, the gap just keeps getting wider.
And we said it before as well. Whilst they like to have, they will buy certain assets, properties and things. Yeah. What they won't do, and, you know, shares on the stock market and things like that.
Yeah.
But what they won't do is pump it back into the economy by going to restaurants, by going to cinemas, by getting clothes, by getting treating themselves to an extra bit of food in the supermarket. Whereas you or I, when we have a bit of disposable income, that's exactly what we do. We give it to the tourism companies. We give it to we go and buy it. You know, you go around the supermarket, you go, do you know what? I'm going to have a little treat tonight.
Buy homes.
Yeah, and you've got to have a lot of income for that. We'll go for days out. We'll go for nights out.
Yeah.
And the money gets pumped back into the economy, and it...
Yeah.
Like I said, I know it's more nuanced than that, but at a very base level...
If you're strictly talking numbers, it's very simple. Like, and that was what sort of blew me away, to be honest. And he was like, it's actually quite simple to fix as well. He's like, you just start taxing assets. Don't take their money. Just start taxing their assets. Because he said then they'll start offloading assets, and then those assets filter back out.
They become available again.
Yeah, and he was like, and that's the way to do it. He said, you just need to allow... Because he was like, we're now in the situation where people are getting priced out of the areas they've lived in their whole life because they can only afford to
move 30 miles down the road,
or further.
Or up to the other end of the country.
Yeah, like we were talking to people at the wedding the other night and hearing some of the house prices up north, and you're like, well, why the fuck would I stay in London? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. And it's sad as well.
Because our lives are here.
Yeah. And everyone we've ever known is here, but you're like, well, I
can't afford it.
Long term, I can't live here. No. Even short term,
no.
If I wasn't fortunate.
Well, that was cheery. Cheery little chat, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's just sort of the state of the world, mate, really, to be honest, isn't it? And like, as we said, there isn't really a light at the end of the tunnel. So there's not even really the only thing I can say is that I think the only way out of it, and I think it's what scares people, is there isn't particularly an answer to it other than sort of tearing up demanding more of your politicians and starting to really reevaluate how we do things and what our priorities are. And I think that scares people because we don't know what that looks like, and then people then are afraid, well, does that mean we'll end up with less somehow?
There's a meme that I've seen recently, and it's your typical punk looking kid, colourful hair,
bit of a grunge.
Yeah, a little bit of a grunge, leather jackets with badges and stuff. And they're saying, like, in the meme, they're like, the system's broken and, we need to fix it. And then next to it is like a quote unquote true revolutionary who's like, no, the system is benefiting exactly who it was designed to benefit. Yeah. We need to overthrow the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like,
Vive la Revolution. The French would have burnt the fucking city to the ground by now if they had to put up with half the shit we put up with.
Oh, 100. The one thing
Parisians would have absolutely
they
fucked
might
shit
have
up.
rolled over in the World War. You know what I mean? World War II, but they don't stand for shit now. They learn their lesson.
They do not fuck around, man.
No, they're more than happy to overthrow a system.
They're like,
Like,
you want me to work 2 more years?
Fuck
I
you.
will burn everything you've ever loved.
I'll murder your family.
I will burn petrol stations to
I'll
the
behead
ground.
people. Do you know what I mean? And we just don't do that, and I don't know why that is.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, wealth inequality and poverty were a huge driving factor in the French Revolution in the 1790s.
Well, yeah, and we've had the quickest fall in living standards since pre-war. Yeah, it's scary.
It's scary.
But the sad thing is, people get driven into blaming the wrong people, and I think part of that, they don't want people to be informed. They don't want people to question. They just want people.
That's why TikTok's probably why TikTok's being banned in America, because they're no longer controlling the narrative. I genuinely believe that's a part of the reason.
Are they banning it then? Are they?
Well, here's the thing: they are banning it, but the bill they've introduced, the bill they've passed in the Senate has now got to go up to the House to be
of representatives.
to actually be passed. But it's a real backdoor thing, 'cause it's not just about banning TikTok. It's a censorship thing. Like, they can ban just about anything through this legislation. So Americans
That's quite frightening, isn't it?
They're not aware. They're like, it's just a TikTok thing, because that's what the media are saying. It's just a TikTok thing. We're just banning. No. It's a really dangerous thing to be introduced.
Yeah.
But a big part of the reason is because a lot of young people today are getting their news from TikTok.
Independent people.
Particularly things like Israel, Palestine and that. Whereas older people, even you or I, we might not believe it when we were growing up. I think now we've changed, but we might not believe it. But we were getting a lot of our news from the state-ran news sources.
Until I became politically engaged, and it was only, and I'll be honest, Russell Brand was one of the big things that made me start questioning like the general narrative you're being taught, because you'd hear
it's okay though, you've learned.
No, but like, look, as you've said before, even a broken clock's right twice a day. He might be potentially a rapist, but
sounds more than potential.
But
I think that's what he sees every time he sees a woman, is the potential for a rape.
Yeah. But no, he was a big part of me, like,
questioning the system
and looking at other places. And I'm not saying he was the one to go to, but he at least opened up my mind to that idea.
But I genuinely believe that the TikTok thing in America is because the state, their backers and their friends are no longer controlling the narrative that's being fed to the people.
So they want to end it.
That's what I think.
It's scary. It's a bit like over here. It's not censorship. I mean, it is to a degree, but definitely trying to silence people. But the measures they want to put in place to stop, or to make it more and more difficult to protest and demonstrate and things like that. And they're using like the recent Palestine marches, saying they're hate marches and all of that. And it's frightening, because that's your last port of call. Like, look at the French, when your representatives don't give a shit what you think, or if you go to the streets and show them exactly how you feel and how serious you feel it,
they're going
to have to fucking listen. But if you remove that and make it as illegal as possible,
make it difficult as possible,
what the fuck can we do? Like, that's something to riot over for me. Like, if they genuinely try and pass, that'd be something I'd have to march for. I'd have to go sick from whatever it was. Like, it's just not acceptable. I'd destroy property for that, to be honest, because everything, like any good movement in history.
I think you've got a little French blood in you.
Maybe.
It's coming to the surface.
No, it's the Scottish side of me.
Yeah.
Rebelling against the system.
Yeah, I'm not sure Scottish rebellion is the one you want to go with.
Look, they're not.
I'd like something more successful.
But it was glorious. Robert the Bruce did it successfully, so.
Yeah. And then what happened after him?
Yeah, it didn't go well.
I mean, at least the French, to be fair, they made it a few years before Napoleon took over.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Napoleon.
And then they fought back.
Is it worth watching the film? You would have watched the film now.
I've not seen the film.
Have you not seen the film?
No. But I know enough. Obviously, as part of my research, I'm pretty well read up on Napoleon. Fancied himself after Caesar, basically.
Yeah, I know he had a bit of a god complex.
Massively. And then in 18...
And didn't he take a ridiculous amount of poison, and it was so much that his body actually rejected it?
Well, in 1814, then the French fought back and kicked... Well, a king, one of the Louis, came and kicked him out. Then he came back, for a few months, and then they kicked him out again, and then they were fine, and they were in their second
Yeah,
Republican era, and then a descendant of Napoleon's grandson, took power, and again in the sort of 1850s was like, do you know what? I fancy that empire shit. I'm going to be an emperor again.
Yeah.
And then it was only when they were getting fucked up by the Prussians at the end. Anyway, but then, yeah, it's not a thing. It's neither here nor there.
What were we talking about?
Well, I think there's at least one other story that we probably want to talk about, isn't there?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I hope I'm going to get this right. Otherwise, I'm going to look like fools. Diane Abbott, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't remember the guy's name. You said it earlier.
Frank Hester.
Yeah, the biggest donor to the Tory party, £10 million.
That we knew about. Apparently, it's since come out because they've now
He's
revealed the
donated more,
last
has he?
5 million.
Shit.
So obviously they reveal it. They go back a certain amount of time and say, this is who, these are our donors. This is who's donated to us. And since the whole thing's come out, it's come out that he's since donating that 10 million, he's since donated another 5 million.
Yeah.
So he's donated 15 million quid to the.
Well, look,
to
that
Conservative
integrity
Party.
Rishi Sunak promised us when he became Prime Minister, and swimming in integrity at the moment.
Do you want to tell
know
the
what I mean?
people what the story is for those that aren't engaged?
Well, I can't remember what the situation he was in. Isn't it they've gone back over old correspondence or something like that, and he's been found to have said that Diane Abbott could make you hate all other black women
And want to shoot them.
and want to shoot them.
Or he might have said he wants to shoot her.
Or that she should be shot.
But yeah.
Yeah. Clearly racist, misogynistic, and just disgusting in general. And like, considering she's the first black female MP, which I didn't know until this came out. And actually, to be honest with you, I think that says a lot that I didn't know. Like,
Well,
that's
I
not
think, like,
something that's celebrated.
people like her and people like Corbyn and that kind of were one of the, they kind of came through it as, they were like a driving force of the left within the party in their earlier days, not in the party's early days, but they were like a driving force of that. No, we're left wing. We need to be radical. We need to make changes for the people. They were kind of that ilk. But I think there's two things that came out of the Frank Hester story, the Diane Abbott story, that really stood out to me. First of all, the Conservative Party's refusal to accept that he said something racist.
Yeah.
Or misogynistic. They were like, what he said was rude.
Didn't Kemi Badenoch break rank on that, though? She did say it was, didn't she?
Yeah, which is quite a shock for Kemi Badenoch, in all honesty. But he apologised, and when he apologised, by the way...
If I'm being really ungenerous, she couldn't not really. Do you know what I mean?
No. But he apologised. He came out after a lot of pressure and said, I apologise for being rude.
Yeah, not for being
racist. And then the Tories were all interviewed on it, or, whoever was in the front bench of the day that was doing the rounds were interviewed, and they said, look, he's apologised. And they were like, well, not for being racist, he hasn't. He's apologised for being rude.
Yeah.
So will you now say that what he said was racist and or misogynistic, and that he should apologise for that? And they were all like, well, no, what he said was wrong. It's like, and again, this is not the first time that the Tories have been or should have been asked this follow-up question, and some journalists have been asking it, credit to them, is when the Tories go, what he said was wrong, the follow-up is, but why was it wrong?
Yeah.
And the answer is, it was racist
yeah.
and it was misogynistic. But they won't say that. They go, what was it that he said? Why was it wrong? Look, it was wrong, and he's apologised. No, he's apologised for being rude. So are you saying that it was wrong because it was rude? Look, what I'm saying, you go around in those circles. The other thing was that they discussed it in Parliament.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Well, not just in the Parliament, not just in question time in PMQs, but in the whole media round since. The one person who I've heard frighteningly little from
is the person it affected.
Is Diane Abbott.
Yeah.
And equally, I've heard frighteningly little from other black women in politics. The likes of Kemi Badenoch, who has said one thing on the issue. The likes of Dawn Butler. I have not heard. And now look, that might be by their choice. They might feel like they don't want to. They might feel like it's in their better public interest to not say anything, to not put themselves in the firing line. But it's been discussed quite largely
think about the fact
by old white men.
The criticism of Sir Lindsay Hoyle, because obviously
He
she
ignored
stood up
her.
46 times.
And was ignored every time.
The only thing I would say, right, is my understanding of convention, because I looked up once why they do the standing up bullshit. And it was because it's to get the speaker's attention. And the speaker is, to my knowledge, I don't know how this works in correlation with PMQs, however, because I don't know whether it's different. But generally, if Parliament's in session and it doesn't matter who's speaking, if a MP stands up, if the speaker decides to call upon that person, they can call upon that person. But like I said, I don't know if that counts within PMQs.
But even now, I'm well aware of the fact that we are two white men discussing
An issue of race.
an issue of race and misogyny against a black woman
Yeah.
who was told that she's enough to make someone want to hate all black women and that she should be shot, which is also a threat of violence. Rishi Sunak stood on the street, they stood outside
And
Downing
said it's
Street
not-
and spoke about the rising threat of extremism,
Yeah, in response to George Calloway, which was weird.
and yet a donor, one of the largest donors to his party, has quite clearly made has quite clearly
it's
implied
hypocritical-
violence or encouraged violence on a member of parliament.
It's hypocritical also because he's fostered
Of anyone, but
of an air of and a environment of hostility, aggression, and racism within the Conservative Party by allowing
he's backed
Priti
himself into a
Patel,
corner.
Suella Braverman, Lee Anderson, and people like that to just get away with saying whatever they want. Because like Lee Anderson's got away with what he did. He's got to walk away and become the poster boy for reform. He gets to,
He wasn't fired.
He got to
didn't
stick the
yeah.
knife in one last time. But that's how inept Rishi Sunak is. He could have used it as an opportunity to show a little integrity and fucking failed.
He could have come out and said, as a brown man, I found what he said
It's fucking
completely
disgusting.
disgusting.
Yeah. And he's not
he does
welcome
not
in my
represent the
party,
values of
and
the
I will use any
Conservatives.
political capital. He could have made
Do
a
you know, it
fucking
would have-
example. He could have stood there.
Wouldn't have won him back, but that would have got him some points in the polls.
And I would have had a little bit of respect for him at least. Do you know what I mean? But it's just something that it's one thing you say about Sir Keir Starmer. He does do it as soon as someone steps out of line in any of these sort of ways. He immediately culls them from the party.
Or eventually, in some cases.
Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty.
What do you make of the incident itself, but B, the reaction to it?
The reaction in terms of the Conservatives is not surprising. They're not. It's completely in line with Rishi Sunak's behaviour since taking over, to have zero accountability, zero intent. All the things he promised he was going to deliver, he's delivered the opposite.
What about the fact that on both sides it's been discussed by
Everyone
old white men,
except-
everyone except women or black women,
I mean, yeah.
or even black men? I haven't even heard people like David Lammy.
No.
You know, I know he's very vocal about a lot of things. He's very opinionated.
he quite often finds a way in front of a camera.
but he's
to
not
be
done the
fair,
rounds.
No, not that I've seen. And you'd think he
He'd have.
would have.
I'm sure he's done an interview or two, but he's
and
not
like
done the
you say,
rounds.
I've not seen a lot of. I can maybe that. I mean, no, I was about to be really generous and say maybe it's by choice. It's systemic issues within all of these systems, whether it's media, parliament, parties. There's not a lot of women in politics. There's not a lot of black women in. There's not a lot of. There's not enough representation in general, and I don't think our system of government and the way we debate is productive in any way whatsoever.
This
and
is
the
going
only
to be
person,
wild.
the first person who should have spoke on the issue in Parliament should have been the person affected, not everyone else.
I want to preface this by saying this is going to be something that we can't answer because we are white and we are men.
Yeah.
And we are straight. So we've never
Most of the
experienced
time.
this. Stag do's are stag do's. We all know the
Do you know
deal.
what I mean?
So I appreciate that we're not in her shoes, and also we've not experienced. We're also younger, so we've not had, even if we had endured a certain amount of prejudice,
Nowhere
we
near.
wouldn't have. Yeah, and we're not as public facing, and I get all that. So I do want to preface this to all of our listeners by saying that we're in no position to actually answer the question I'm about to answer, but
No.
I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
Or the question I'm about to ask. I'm going to ask it anyway. So what would you do? What would be your response if you were Diane Abbott? Someone says that about you, the story breaks. Do you respond quickly? Do you wait it out when it gets to question, PM, do you do an interview round? How do you respond? Release a statement? Do you say nothing?
I'd have probably wanted to give a statement in the House.
Would you
And I would have.
Would you speak to Sakir first as well? Would you speak to your leader and
I
go,
would have
look,
informed him what my plans
and
are,
you'd have
but
done it,
not
yeah,
have
okay.
asked for permission. I would have said, this is what I'm going to do.
and tell him that you're not a black woman, so you don't understand?
Yeah.
Which I'm well aware, we're not black women, so we don't understand.
And I think I'd have probably tried to have spoken to Sir Lindsay Hoyle and said, you're going to give me some time to say something today.
Maybe she did, and maybe he ignored, maybe he didn't go there.
Possibly. And like, to be honest with you,
But what does your statement say? What kind of
it would
message you put
be, first of all, to condemn what was said and the person who said it. But I would have then gone on to the larger, the outside issue of the fact, since Rishi Sunak has taken office and promised, and I would have just used the three things he promised: the integrity, the accountability and responsibility, whatever it was. And I would just use this as an analogy to point out that since he's taken office with Suella, and I'd call them all out, Priti Patel, Lee Anderson, Suella Braverman, whoever else you want to come out with, and be like, you have fostered this environment and you have contributed as a brown man who should know better. You fostered an environment that is not safe for people like us, and it's desperately saddening. I would even point out, you might have the wealth to defend yourself. Not all of us do.
Many of my constituents don't.
No.
And will face similar prejudices.
100%. That would be what it would be full shame I'd want to go for, because
But it would be,
Rishi Sunak won't ever be held accountable for what he's done while he's in office, whether it's filling his and his wife's pockets or fostering a hateful environment.
So
but neither will Theresa
to be
May.
clear and to sum up, you again, just preface this, we don't know, we're in no position to say, but you would, relatively soon after the story breaks, you'd inform your party leader what you were going to do.
Yeah.
You'd release a statement.
I'd even let him see the statement
and
prior.
in that statement, you would condemn Frank Hester and attack the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
That's your dual
and
plan
the
of the
Conservatives
thing.
as a whole, yeah.
The government, okay, the Prime
Yeah.
Minister / the government, but that's your dual focus of the message of the statement.
Yeah.
I'm not judging that, by the way.
And
I just
I'd
wanted to
even maybe
clarify.
try and include within there that the Conservatives and Nigel Farage and public figures like that choosing to convince people that foreigners and people with different coloured skins are the reason you've got less, when it's people like the man who's running our country lining their pockets with as much money as possible are the actual issue. I'd use it as...
Probably, and I'm just saying this like as if I was your political advisor.
Yeah.
I would say you probably couldn't, since Rishi's come out and said he wants nothing to do with Farage and Farage's ilk.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he hasn't actually, has he?
No, I don't think he has.
Starmer came out and said he wants nothing to do with Farage's ilk.
Rishi didn't.
No, you're quite right. Continue on the attack.
Yeah, and
My
that would
apologies,
be
my
what
man.
I'd go for. I'd be like, the Tories have been happy to turn the general public against anyone of a different colour, orientation, race, ethnic, whatever you want to, all creeds, for the express interest of lining their own pockets and making things better for people like them, rather than actually serving the people.
But you would have released the statement. You wouldn't have stayed quiet.
Yeah, I wouldn't. But then saying that, if she's made a decision to stay quiet, fine. That's completely, if that's what she thinks the right thing to do is, who
But
the
then
fuck am I to disagree?
But then her standing up in Parliament suggests that she at least had something to say. She at least had a question to ask of the Prime Minister.
Yeah. And
it might have had nothing to do with that, by the way. It might have been about some constituency issue that she stood up for.
Part of me wonders whether the reason
just seems unlikely
he didn't let her speak was perhaps because of some of the issues he's had recently with breaking convention and the reaction he's had using his power in Parliament. If it was out of the ordinary to let someone else speak at PMQs, I could perhaps understand why he didn't want to do that. But if Sir Lindsay Hoyle's honest in what he said previously, that he cares about what he's doing in Parliament, then he should have stuck to that.
But equally for Lindsay Hoyle, if I was Lindsay Hoyle, who I feel more able to step into their shoes, it would be very easy to come out and say to the House, to address the issues at the next sitting and say, my right honourable friends, I urge you to, I've been accused of breaking convention, to let the right honourable lady speak in the last
Yeah.
PMQs. I urge you to look around the house and look around and see how many women of colour you see sitting in this house. And when you do see them, how far back they are on the... Maybe I wouldn't add that because obviously you have had Pretty and you have had Suella and whatever at the front bench.
Yeah.
And Kemi is now on the front benches. So maybe I
And
wouldn't
one
use
of the
that.
favourites to be the leader of the Tories after all.
So
this
maybe I
shakes
wouldn't
out.
say that, but I would be saying, look around you, see how few women of colour there are in this house, see how few black women there are in this house. When one of them, there's very few, and when one of them is attacked, I believe that that person has the right to defend them, has the right to stand up and have a say on the issue. That is why I broke convention, because it's not, because it's not even like a black woman was attacked and another black woman wanted to stand up and say something.
It was the person affected.
It was the person target. Like I said,
Yeah.
she might have been standing up for a constituency issue. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it seems unlikely. It seems likely that
It's
she would have
highly
been
unlikely, I would have thought. It seems like she was very keen to
very
have
likely
something
that
to
she would have
say.
said something about the.
But I am surprised that I've not seen an interview where she's talked about it.
Do you blame Sakir for not? Again, maybe he asked her, maybe he offered her, and she said no. But do you blame Sakir for not giving her more airtime?
Yeah, I think if I was him,
Like I said, she's probably associated in the Labour Party.
Again, but the thing is,
she's associated with that
if you went
Corbyn
back
thing.
in the context of the recent drama, Sakir supposedly overstepped with Lindsay Hoyle once. So if he then tries to do it again for the right thing, and
No, but not necessarily in the House, but in terms of the interview rounds and stuff.
Yeah,
For not
pushing
promoting
her
her.
out there.
And again,
But again, if she doesn't want that,
one, she might not want it, and two, she's
it
like I
might
said,
be
she's kind of
opportunistic
she's
and-
the Corbynistic left of the party,
Yeah.
and he's trying to focus. He's trying to get himself away from that. He's been trying for years, the last few years, to try and be more centrist. And like I know you and I
Cull the
have
left.
criticised him of almost being too straddling in the middle and sometimes
Yeah.
on the right. But would you criticise Keir Starmer for not,
Yeah, because I think if I was him, I would have tried to have found a way,
or even if she doesn't want to come out and go, someone in my
Even
party was
if-
attacked?
even if she couldn't speak, I'd have been like, you give me what you want me to say and ask him, and I'll do it.
Or even if you say, if you just to come out and say,
Because
look,
having her sat in the room, watching that happen, and having to have Rishi respond to her words while she's in the room, would put a lot of gravity to the situation.
but
There
even
could
to
have been,
almost ignoring her, unless
Yeah.
she's done no, leave it, which it seems really unlikely.
yeah,
Even for him to step up and say something to the effect of, there are untold number of black women in this country, and this week they all came under attack.
yeah,
So I'm gonna raise that thing, and I'm gonna try and defend them, because I want to, Labour is a party for the people, and those people include black women.
yeah.
He could have said, I think he could have and should have been saying something like that. Maybe I'm being too harsh.
No,
Maybe I don't know the
We're probably being a
nitty-gritty.
little bit harsh, but with all these things, they can always be handled better. And I think, sadly, instead of dealing the issue that's in front of them, they deal with the politics of the issue in front of them. Do you know what I mean? And
Do you think
they don't deal with the actual human side of it.
Do you think the way the Prime Minister handles situations much like this and other issues? So I'm sort of looking to wrap up, by the way, in
No,
case
that's
you
fine, bro.
You don't have to, but I feel like we've probably done a good run time.
Yeah.
Do you think the way the Prime Minister handles things makes the PR team at Kensington Palace think, oh man, we're not that bad? We're bad, but
It's
we're not that
funny, innit,
bad.
because he can't be, to a degree, he can't be doing that bad of a job considering the position Labour are in. But he's also been helped. And I think, if I'm being really honest, I think the position they're in, by and large, has absolutely nothing to do with Sir Keir Starmer. I
No,
think.
it's on Rishi, so that's what I mean. They must be
Yeah.
looking at Rishi's PR team and thinking like, well, shit. But then what you
Yeah,
got?
and it
What you
doesn't
got to
really
work
make
with?
The only way Rishi's behaviour and the way he handles stuff makes sense is that if you just accept the fact that what he's doing the job for is to keep lying in his pockets for as long as humanly possible, and to cling on for power for as long as possible, because they aren't going to win the election. That's almost a foregone conclusion. Like, Sir Keir Starmer would have to murder someone in the street, but even then they'd just replace him, and whoever was, like, they'd probably be with Angela Rayner, and then they'd still win. Do you know what I mean? And then that would, I mean, look, I don't want Sir Keir Starmer to go out and kill someone, but a government with Angela Rayner at the head of it feels far more optimistic to me than one with Sir Keir Starmer.
Rachel Reeves supposedly had some quite, before she was appointed Shadow Chancellor, apparently had some quite radical ideas for
Oh, really? What,
for
left or
budgeting, for
right?
for
Okay.
addressing the
The disparity.
inequalities.
Yeah,
But apparently they've since been abandoned for the party of the middle,
of course.
which I get. I appreciate.
Yeah,
At the moment, the first step is get these lot out.
Yeah.
Then you start working on getting
But,
better.
like, I can guarantee you, we will be... I have every intention of being as critical of Sir Keir Starmer and Labour when they're in
As
power
I think we have
I have been with... No,
Even without him being
I think
in power.
we've definitely... Because I remember when he first came in, my attitude was very much like, well, let's see what happens. And to be honest with you, he's not really done a great job. He's done a good job in terms of changing Labour, and he's made them a more credible outfit, I think. But
no, but he's very.
he himself hasn't done well for himself.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
This is what I believe. This is what I believe. 6 months later,
Oh, I don't
what a
believe
fool!
that
That was
anymore.
that was not. I know. Yeah,
Yeah, I completely disavow that.
yeah. Absolutely terrible opinion.
Yeah,
I'm going in this other direction.
yeah, and that's been the
Fine, you
story
can
of
change your
his-
mind, but generally his I'm really,
Yeah.
behind this, and now they tend to be switches from the left to the right. They tend to be I'm really
Yeah.
behind this left
It's a
idea.
bit like,
Now I'm behind this.
I can't remember the line. You might be able to help me. It's in Hamilton, where I think Hamilton's talking to Aaron Burr, and it's something like, if people don't, but it's something to do with how will we know what you stand for? Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? I can't remember the line, but it reminds me of that, of like, if you keep keeping your cards close to your chest, Sakir, like, it's getting tense. Do you know what I mean? We need
Yeah.
some, but I also understand.
That's been one of our big criticisms
Yeah.
of Keir Starmer. Is we know we're voting for someone who isn't the Conservatives, but what are we actually
What
voting
am I
for?
meant to believe? Do I believe that Sir Keir Starmer supports a lot of left-leaning stuff, like he said in the past? Or do I believe that he doesn't actually believe those things because he's abandoned them? If I'm being really naive, I'd like to believe he does believe in those things, but he's had to publicly abandon them for
No, but we don't know what-
expedience.
we-
But we can't
We're
guarantee
literally
that.
voting for Labour as the alternative to the Conservatives because we don't know what Labour stand for. We've said that
No.
for months now, years maybe, but
No.
definitely months.
Yeah. I think it must be at least a year now we've been talking about this. And it's
My
not
sense of time
changed.
is dreadful, so don't ask me. But
No, that's fine.
I'm
But
hazarding a guess.
we're supposedly like 6 months out. They reckon it's going to be September now. But we're no closer to answers or knowing what position we're going to be in than we were.
Labour's manifesto is going to be like step one. We're not the Tories.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's not really a plan or
No.
a pledge.
Their promise is basically like, we're not going to do as bad as they did. That's basically what we're being. It's going to be hard, guys, but it's not going to be as bad.
It's going to be shit.
Yeah.
But
Less
that's not
shit.
their pledge, is it? They're like, no, we're going to be amazing.
Yeah. They've promised a new deal for workers.
It's like,
That's the only big thing they promised.
we're gonna make the poor better, and they're like, okay, how? We're just gonna make the poor better.
And we're going to build loads of homes.
Much like
How?
you during that Smarty Pictionary, I will be calling him out. He can't just say things
But I
that
delivered.
are unrealistic.
I delivered in Pictionary.
You eventually delivered.
Constantly. Just because you lot didn't understand it.
Yes, it was our fault. Once again,
But I was
it was
epic
us.
at charades.
No, look, the games night as a whole was a marked improvement on your last games night as a whole.
I go definitive.
But that one moment when you were like, when it was incest,
Yeah.
which was a weird thing for us to all do at that party, but
Yeah, we had to draw
needs must.
incest.
needs us. Oh, I was talking about when we did it.
Oh, what?
No, but when the card came up, it was like Smutty Pictionary and it came incest, and you just brazen like we struggled with it, and you just sort of it wasn't your turn to draw that turn, but you just went, oh, that's really easy. I draw brothers and sisters, and then just expected us to move on, and it was like, no. Draw brothers and sisters. Draw me the concept of brothers and sisters. Now, there's a few people that are listening that will have an immediate idea. They'll probably think family tree. They'll probably think, but again, it's quite difficult if you know what you're looking for, then you go, yeah, that makes sense. Like if you don't know, if you've got no context, nothing at all, you just drew a man and a woman, and it was like, I don't get this. And then you wiped it out and went, no, I wouldn't do. I'd draw Jamie Lannister, and you were more successful at drawing Jamie Lannister. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But you just drew a man and a woman and went, yes, brothers and sisters, that's what I do in it. I wouldn't. That's what I'm going to do with Keir. When Keir says we're going to do this, it's like, but
How care?
how?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
But I think again that's why he doesn't go in front of anyone who's going to give him a tough interview.
No.
And I think that's where he's made a big mistake. I think he's overestimated how much difference the media could make now. I don't think they could. Like, if he came out with, this is exactly what we're going to deliver, this is our plan to turn everything around, I think they could criticise it as much as they want. I think as long as it
But equally,
actually looks slightly better.
do you think they have a plan?
What I've read online is that they're still struggling to cost what they want to do. Like, they've got a list of these are the things
but they've
we'd
got a
like to
budgetary shortfall,
Yeah, and they're trying
which is literally the challenge of government.
Yeah, so what their problem is, they don't want to promise any of the things on that list if they can't say this is how we're going to deliver it.
And I've always respected that.
Yeah. So, and their argument apparently is that they don't know 100% what the situation is until they're in the job. So they're sort of like...
Because what you don't want is, and I think it's one of the biggest political fuck-ups of anything ever.
Was it the note in the...
No, Nick Clegg.
Oh.
You don't want a Nick Clegg. I think in our lifetimes...
Yeah, and
I might be wrong, but they literally got in on one pledge. The Lib Dems had one pledge.
And they fucked
free
it.
university. And by the time Nick Clegg was done as...
they tripled it.
It was triple the cost. It's like, bro, you literally had one thing.
That man's
now,
living...
we appreciate...
Do you know who he works for now?
Go on.
He's knighted and he works for Meta.
Of course he does.
Absolutely minted.
But now I think in the intervening years, I realised that there was a good chance that Nick Clegg actually was and the Lib Dems actually were fighting the Tories on a lot of stuff when you see it what the Tories put in place after the coalition.
Yeah.
But when you get in on one pledge
and you don't
and not only
deliver
do
it.
you not deliver it, you make it worse. You know, Labour I think are aware of that, and I'd rather they didn't.
And then I think you got the Corbyn
big.
example as well of when the people were offered all the shiny things, everything nationalised, free Wi-Fi for everyone, investing like unlimited amounts of money into the NHS. We went, no, fuck that, absolutely fuck that. Boris is offering us nothing.
A shiny bus.
He's offered us a little bit of money into the NHS every week, which was never a thing and never was going to be delivered. And an oven-ready deal that still hasn't fully gone through. And
an oven-ready deal that
we've had, 2 prime ministers since? Yeah, 2.
We're now taking it back to the shop and going, this
we
isn't
need to
right.
have another look at this.
And the shop are going, well, that's exactly what you bought.
Yeah.
They're going, no.
I was listening
to
a guy who worked in logistics talk about just the difference
post-Brexit.
And it's
a nightmare. It's an actual
I couldn't
headache.
explain it if I wanted to be honest with you. But listening to it was like one form, like for each lorry. Basically, you just have to have a sheet of paper and you got waved through. They never looked at anything. Nothing, like, but now it's like for different items you need no.
You need a form on both sides of the transaction. Yeah, you need. Yeah,
and for like every different type of product you've got has different regulations and what's required and checks.
I mean, it's really easy. Before we were part of a trade.
Well, there was a trust.
Where also it was like, well, we all have to follow the same rules for our products,
so we don't have to worry about
quality. The quality of your products
100%.
minimum is going to be the minimum
same
of
as
ours.
ours. So
that's
we're
no
cool.
problem.
Yeah.
Whereas now they don't have the assurances.
No, so there has to be checks. There has to be
checks.
forms. There has to be.
I mean, again, that's a really simplified version. That's a really basic version of events.
But that has done untold damage to our economy. Just that one area, not everything else that comes with it. But that has done more damage than we can imagine.
Yeah, because it costs so much more. Because the companies have got to have people to.
Just talk to truck drivers. Just ask truck drivers.
The actual movement of it's so much slower, so you can get fewer products in and out.
Yeah.
All of that knock-on effect of it.
Absolutely. But guys, thank you for tuning in to probably one of our happiest episodes in a while.
Cheery. We talked about some fun stuff.
Yeah, we did.
The bleak realisation that
everything's going to end.
Everything's wasted and we're all going to die miserable and penniless.
But tell us what your plans are for the future
is there any point? What are your plans? What can you afford? What economy are you a part of?
Message us anyway and you can do it. It'll be on screen.
Okay, yeah.
At Twitter, at Swords Crossing. Facebook, Crossing Swords, on Instagram and TikTok at CrossingSwords_podcast, and you can email us at CrossingSwords19@gmail.com. And please, it would be a massive help. I mean, we've been doing really well recently, and we really appreciate it. We're getting more subscribers on YouTube, which is amazing. But just keep liking, drop a comment, subscribe, send it to a mate. It makes a huge difference. One of our most loyal listeners came to us that way.
Even if you genuinely just open up YouTube
And just
find the episode, hit like, go in the comments, put a little thumbs up emoji or any kind of emoji, and then leave. You don't have to. Yeah, that helps massively.
An unbelievable amount of difference.
Like, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen as well, if you've got the option. You know, if you're on Apple,
absolutely.
you can like it, rate it, and subscribe.
Absolutely. But guys, thank you for all the support. We love you, and we'll see you soon.
And I'm promising bigger things than Keir Starmer ever promised in the next episode.
And that's just the schlong.
Huge things.
Trust me, I know.
The biggest.